Love Actually, 2003. This is a Christmas romantic comedy from 22 years ago. It's, I guess, a lot of people familiar with it, but um, I've never covered it in my film reviews. It's an ensemble cast with many familiar faces for anyone who's seen Richard Curtis's other offerings, and he's famous for films like Four Weddings and a Funeral and Notting Hill, more recently About Time. It's apparently I only found this out via Wikipedia. Again, I try not to read too much of that. But it was inspired by Robert Altman's films and also Pulp Fiction. And that really is curious, but maybe it's simply because there's just so much packed in. So it's very fast moving, and there's such an ensemble cast. There's Chiwetel Ejiofor, who's Peter. There's Colin Firth as Jamie. Um, Hugh Grant as the Prime Minister. Um, Laura Linney, Martin McCutcheon, Liam Neeson, Alan Rickman, the late Alan Rickman, Emma Thompson, and Chris Marshall, Billy Bob Thornton, and Rowan Atkinson. So there's loads of famous people, well-known actors, certainly from that time. And lots of stories that dovetail into each other. There's a lot of interaction between cast members, but some cast don't meet. Some of the characters don't meet each other, but um, it makes it exciting, and it's. I think it showcases London, certainly the London of the early 20th century, the noughties decade, and it opened several weeks before Christmas. I remember going to the cinema when it did open. I think it was the first night was the 21st of November, and I very much remember 2003, and the decorations, the Christmas decorations that year. There's one at Hyde Park Corner. Um, some really beautiful stuff that I remember from that year's decorations. But this would have been filmed at least a year before. And in 2002, a friend who lived in Herne Hill mentioned that the neighbouring road, the Bower Road, was being closed for filming without knowing what the film was. Well, it was Poplar Road in SE24, and that, it turned out, was where there's a scene that involves the new prime minister, who gets elected just a few weeks before Christmas and has what you might call an awkward relationship with one of his staff members who makes the tea. That's, I mean, there's some very corny stuff, but there's a sort of he's a single man, David, the new prime minister, and he sort of, it felt, modelled quite a bit on Tony Blair, who was the prime minister of that time. I mean, it wasn't exactly, but it felt like there were some parallels. And then there was tense tension with the US president, who's played by Billy Bob Thornton, really, um, difficult relations, and that's often alluded to nowadays. If I mean, people talk about um, our prime minister standing in the hope that our prime minister would stand up to um, the US president, um, which very rarely happens. I mean, even back in the days of Tony Blair and George W. Bush, um, our prime minister was seen as a poodle who would not stand up, or would actually. I mean, it was in the days after 11th September 2001. So there was the whole thing with Afghanistan and Iraq, the wars and everything. So, I mean, none of this gets covered in this film. I'm sort of slightly distracted by talking about the geopolitics of that time, but some things could apply to the geopolitics of now. But I mean, that's these are all small sub stories. There's also a pop star, Billy Mack, who's got a song that is like the signature tune for the whole film, and it's like um, it's based on a Wet 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 song, but with new modeled lyrics for that time to become "Love Is All Around," um, and uh, that particular sub story is will Billy Mack get to number one for Christmas? Because there's a countdown of 4 or 5 weeks. So there's that happening. Oh gosh, there's, um, the videos, I mean, it's all really corny and dated, and actually, um, one of the, videos, it feels very much, the energy of, and the vibe of, uh, the 1986 song "Addicted to Love" by Robert Palmer, um, which was criticised even back then because it was like objectifying women. It was showing a group of uh, um, women sort of playing guitars. I mean, looking really beautiful, but probably not. I don't know. Maybe not playing uh, guitars, but actually just used to attract um, the um, the male gaze, as it's called, and those points were made when that came out way back in 1986. So 17 years later, in 2003, the only thing I can think why that would have happened is perhaps Robert Palmer died that year, so maybe it was a nod or tribute to him. It's just a thought. I just noticed that when I was, like, looking through, um, some of the, stuff, and again, glancing because I don't really want to get too distracted or look too deeply at things because I want to give my own point of view of this film. Um, and there's, um, heartbreaking stuff. I mean, it's all revolves around love, but some of it is heartache. Um There's Sarah, that's Laura Linney's character, who has had trouble with relationships, and she's looking after her brother who isn't well or who has conditions that require a lot of attention and care. and, she prioritizes her brother, but, there's Harry, played by Alan Rickman, who encourages her because he's noticed that Carl, uh, who also works in the office, actually fancies Sarah. So they have a night out, and it starts off joyful. I won't say how any of this finishes because there's a whole pile of different sub stories or minor stories that all conclude at certain points, and won't say what um, how they end. But some bits. Oh, the one thing is Harry is not exactly, and this is very clear early on, not exactly faithful with his own wife, Karen, played by Emma Thompson. So that is one of the heartbreaking scenes because she's expecting presents. Um, there's all this present buying. There's this whole scene with Rowan Atkinson playing someone in, is it Selfridges or one of those great big department stores in the West End, and Harry is getting um, very full of angst whilst he buys something for his mistress, whilst um, Karen, Emma Thompson's character, thinks, I mean, she kind of almost finds out that what the present is, thinks it's for her. Um, but Harry has other ideas. So there's that particular, that's another story. There's a videographer who's filming a wedding. There's that story. There's Daniel, who's a widowed father with a young son who's troubled by early love. Um, there's Colin, who has he's an office worker who has this bonkers idea of going flying to the USA on his own for Christmas, landing in one of the flyover states. I think it's Wisconsin, all full of snow. Um, and he just arrives in the airport and asks the taxi driver to take him to the nearest bar, where he is expecting to find um, plenty of girls who will, plenty of young women who will fall for him, and um, so there's that, bonkers things like that. His friends just think he's bonkers mad, just sort of not with it because why would that happen? Um, and gosh, there's this author who is got this is Colin Firth's character, Jamie, and he's got writer's block. He's got a new housekeeper, and at one point he's typing away his book, and then a lot of it falls into the water, and the housekeeper dives into the water after it. I mean, that's in the trailer. So there's all these uh, elements. They all are brought, I guess, very expertly into some pattern. There's a must have taken ages just to make the storyboard for all these stories to see how they fit in properly. There's lots of humor. Some of it is dated, some of it are, you know, people, the new generations, the younger generations, Gen Z, etc., probably won't be, as impressed by a film like this as I was when I first saw it, because I did love it. I thought, "Oh, wow, what a wonderful film." And then gradually, I mean, this was 22 years ago, gradually, um, I've realised, and there are some actors in this film who I don't particularly like anymore, don't want to mention their names for their choices of what they're deciding to do. You know, the people they support, or um, that there's that whole thing as well. But there's so many different elements, so many different people. When I say it's all in one go, and I did watch it again. I watched it November 2003. I saw it again a few months later, probably January 2004, just, because I really liked it back then. But I've seen it much more recently, probably 2021 or 22, and at this point, recognised where it would be dated, where certain things you just think, "Oh gosh," but it still hangs on to a lot of the humour, and probably isn't as certainly isn't as controversial as, the film I reviewed yesterday, but it's still got its, cringy moments, difficulties, awkwardness, and, um, kind of yeah, it's a bit, you know, um, I I think I like a lot of the I'm more comfortable watching more recent, Christmas films, and I do tend to get into seeing Christmas films, as you may have noticed if you've watched, many of my reviews. Like last year, it was, that, cartoon Winter in Wonderland, wasn't it? Something like that. No, what was it called? It was, um, it was an animation about which sort of combines, a couple of, previous animations, in a very clever way, and I love that. Um, I liked Last Christmas, 2019, and this year I've enjoyed Christmas Karma. So I think there's a fair number of films, with Christmassy themes that will supersede Love Actually now, but it was of its time, if that's not too corny a thing to say in itself. Um, and, um, I think it shows a lot of, British humour. It's very much like a lot of the other things from, like Bridget Jones, and For Weddings and the Funeral, and all the other films that, um, still hold on to a lot of their appeal, I think, but maybe I'm wrong. Now I think I'm going to score this 8 out of 10 still, down from 9 out of 10 as it would have scored, um, back when I first saw it. So definitely the shine's come off it. But I'd like to know what you think if you've seen this film, and many, so many people will. It's been around such a long time. Um, Please like if you like this review. Thanks if you subscribe. Please hit the notification button. Please leave a comment, your thoughts, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.